Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday Night Live show. Our guest this evening is Jim McCarthy. He is the man behind most of the amazing AVM Twitter threads that we love so much. He's also works for CounterPoint Strategies, which is AVM's PR firm. And we wanted to bring him on here so we can talk about how he comes up with those amazing threads and what is coming up next for AVM. So thank you so much for joining us, Jim.
Well, it's a special treat, and you're nice to include me. I'm a frequent watcher, although I'm more of a lurker than a commenter, but fan of the show and of everyone here. And I'm just very, very pleased to have a chance to confabulate with all y'all.
Yes, I love Jim. He knows he's one of my favorite humans, so I'm very excited that he's here with us. John, let's start with you. How's your week going?
It's going good. It mellowed out a little bit. We're staying in the 90s, so it's been good. Hot, that's about it. Pool pump broke, so had to get that fixed. Stunk, but got it fixed, and we're back in business. It's just been it's really been a slow week. How's that? That's all I got to say. It's just a slow week.
Could be worse. Tim, how about yourself?
Well, if that's the worst things that have happened in California in the past week, I'd say that's good luck, right? Because it's about that close to falling off the continent. But anyway, my week, usual schmusual. But I'm blonde and I like shiny things, and I've never been so excited about a kitchen utensil in my entire life than today. And I bought an idiot box. Now you might ask, why is that a kitchen utensil? Well, it's really, in other words, a rice cooker, and I suck at making rice. So I bought this rice cooker, and I was so thrilled to get it. It's all digital touchscreen, so it cures the nerd in me. But man, it makes rice like 1,000 times better than I could ever make rice. So if anybody wants to have a rice party at my house, I'm your guy. I'm your dude. Other than that, same old, same old.
Rice party at Tim's. I love it. Phillip, how's your week going?
It's been a very emotional week, as some of you may know. Yesterday was the yahrzeit, the anniversary of my youngest brother's death. It's been 11 years. And I find that you kind of have to be extra mindful. Otherwise you become curt with people who don't deserve your vicious bifurcated tongue, so to speak. When you're in that sort of state, when you're remembering, mourning his death. And I think most of them are going to get out alive. I think they're going to be okay. But no, I miss the kid. He was a great human being. And on the much brighter side of the spectrum, my two quote stepchildren, Ken is back in Oxford, and Michael just started his first week of medical school at UAB.
Wow.
You're going to need them, right? Someday?
Yeah.
Need them now, buddy. Need them now.
Yeah. Well, sorry to hear about that, Phillip. We love you, and
we do.
Take every day as it comes, and definitely look for the bright side, which is obviously what you're doing. We love to see that.
Always. Thank you.
And how about you, Jim? How's your week going?
Well, it's been a busy one. We've been trying to help our clients in the Canadian forest and paper industry deal with all the stories about the wildfires they're having there. So that's been a bumpy ride for a number of weeks. And we're doing some work with an NFL team, trying to help them through some personnel controversies they've got. And what else have we got going that's not too wonky and dull? let's see. It's been just a few brush fires. It's funny. I mean, our practice is mostly crisis management, and so all of our clients have various controversies they're dealing with. And the joke in our agency is at this stage in our careers, we're kind of like the ER doctors who've seen it's another gunshot wound on a Friday night. We're just like wheel them in and give them an IV. I'll see them in 20 minutes. So it's been a lot of that, a lot of a busy week in that way.
Take two and call your lawyer in the morning. Is that
yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Destroy the cell phones and the security footage and get back to
it. Yeah.
Well, I know we appreciate having you in our corner. That's for sure. Anytime.
Yeah, no, it's a real pleasure. I mean, as you can tell, I'm a vapor myself, and I was able to quit a 20+ year Marlboro habit thanks to nicotine vaping, and I'm an accidental quitter, and now I'm an evangelist. And so when I first got to know Amanda Wheeler, it really was a delight, because I followed the issue closely, and it means a lot to my heart. And I lost my own mom to COPD 2 years ago. She had smoked Marlboros for 60+ years, and I tried mightily to get her to switch to vaping. And so the issue is very close to my heart, and we're in it in that sense, and also because I really admire the industry. It's made up of so many vibrant entrepreneurs who care so passionately, and my agency is made up of mostly free marketeer thinking DC think tank people. So it's the kind of industry that we really like a lot, and so in that intellectual sense, we're in it too. So it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we
wonderful to have you here,
appreciate
Jim.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I get to talk to Jim almost every single day, which is awesome for me. But I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions for him. So if we want to start with John.
Hold on, Ellie. Hold on, Ellie.
Oh, that's right. Tim's got to say hi to the group. Sorry.
Yep.
That's okay. That's all right. They'll let it slide every now and again. But for the sake of argument, hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show. Great to see you here. Listen to that background music. That's the best. Do you guys hear the music? John's been lying to me for 2 weeks now. I was like, I'm waiting for Shaft to be chanted here in a minute. But let's go to the top of the list and work our way south. We got Mallory Gates in at the top of the list. Good to see you, Mallory. Always wonderful to see you. And I know how you answered that trivia question or the poll question. I'm pretty confident that was a big fat YES. And wait, we got to skip past all the example boxes. Pam Spraggins, great to see you. How are you, dear? Keep it Addie Tooney, great to see you always. Redden, good to see you. I hadn't seen Redden in a week or two. I hope you're doing all right, man. Great to see you back. I know who that guy is because it's me. Jane, hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, I got to get this one right. If I butcher this name, I'm sure I'll never be able to leave it down. It's Bautista, not like Bautista. Bautista. Am I saying that right, James? I hope so. If not, you can slap me through the internet. It's quite all right. Steve Tottenham, great to see you. I feel, God, I got to the bottom of the list fast. It's way too fast. We need more people. Everybody chime in, say something, talk to your friends. And Allie, back to you.
Back to you.
Studio.
Right. Sorry about that, guys. Did not mean to skip over almost one of the most important parts of our show. John, do you have any questions for Jim?
Oh, you want me to start off? Oh,
I do.
Oh man, I was not even prepared. I am actually very prepared. You brought up a couple things of other corporations or businesses that you represent and help. How much different has it been working with vapors than say the NFL, like you were talking about the NFL?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a little quick backstory on our shop. We're a boutique agency, and we've got about a dozen professionals in offices in New York and DC, and then some specialists that work for us on a contract basis for different kinds of digital, creative, advertising specializations. And our clientele, we're a small shop, but I like to think we have a pretty high-end clientele. We work with a number of leading private equity firms, some very large cap companies like Home Depot and United Technologies and DuPont Chemical, and a variety of other leading trade associations in industries like the Forest and Paper Association, Soft Plastics. We represent the seafood industry. They're the main trade association for the seafood industry is our client. We built a coalition of the big three tuna companies, which we represent. That's Starkist, Bumblebee, Chicken of the Sea. And we do some work for the Consumer Finance Trade Association. So, what all those clients have in common is that they're, frequently under attack from activist groups, regulators, sometimes litigation, and of course, media controversies also. And so the issues that you guys have been facing share a lot of those dynamics where activist groups are working in a kind of close concert with news media to drive controversy toward an industry in order to leverage public policy outcomes that they prefer. So the dynamics are very, very similar. But what I love about the vaping industry is you guys are much more, how can I put it, more gung-ho, braver, more intrepid, and are willing to, take on those adversaries in ways that are a lot more assertive than the clients we have in a lot of other spaces. And I used to try to, boost Amanda's morale and Allie's too by saying, look, you guys are the bravest clients I've got. You say yes to almost every recommendation we make. You're fearless in the face of these giant 800-pound gorilla adversaries you've got. And you take no prisoners. You aren't shy about sticking up for your product and your ethos and your principles. And so it's been a real joy to have AVM as a client because, one of our biggest frustrations with all the larger kinds of projects we work on is that those clients are often very timid. I mean, you would think that a client like DuPont Chemical is this giant, Death Star multi-billion-dollar corporation that, fears nothing. But the reality is that large cap public companies, even large private equity firms in those industries are, typically very timid. And when the New York Times, steps to their door or, fill in the blank activist group, they can get very apprehensive. And so that's not the case at all with vaping. I cannot remember an occasion when Allie or Amanda have shied away from any recommendation we've made, for fear of, I don't know, offending a journalist or, rankling an activist group. And so it's been a real pleasure for us.
Real quick though, have you, with that in mind, do you notice, are we more active with helping than say some of the other corporations with their customers? Is it a little, I know it's a little bit of a different thing, but have you noticed us being more involved as a customer in this product than say some of your other customers that you have?
It's a good question. I mean, most of our clients are themselves big evangelists for their products. So we do a lot of work in the forest and paper industry, for example, not just the trade association, but several of the leading companies and projects they do. And those guys are all big, paper evangelists, and they want people to use paper, and they care a lot about the role that it plays in people's life, like everything from sentimental notes to keeping your kids, drawings on beautiful paper.
Hey, I got a couple on my refrigerator.
Yes. Or the way that you can keep your records in a hard form. I mean, there's so many virtues of that product that particular client cares about and talks about and engages with their customers about. But with you guys, it's a little bit different because, much as I love my other clients, with vaping, you're saving your customers' lives. And I mean, the stakes are everything. And the outreach and connection that you guys make with those customers, means the world. And it's like, I mean, I'm reminded of what Dr. Why can't I think of his name? The guy that handed Matt Myers his hat on the doctor's program. Siegel, Mark Siegel. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of what Doc Siegel says, that vape shops are smoking cessation clinics. And so in that sense, I think what you guys are doing in your outreach and interaction with your customers is, I mean, it couldn't be more meaningful. And although my other clients like to do that sort of stuff in their own way with their own products, you guys are doing it in a way that has an almost, to my mind, an almost spiritual quality.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Timmy.
Yeah, so you kind of encapsulated what I was thinking, and so this kind of sets the stage for my question. So, being that you're in, you do what you do in a PR firm, and you have to, in effect, you get hired to come to the defense of companies, like you said, that are under attack. Obviously, this entire industry is consistently under attack. Obviously, as a human, we all can't believe in everything and stand behind every crusade that everybody has, right? Because vaping as a general practice is, like you said, designed to save lives, to get people to quit smoking. So how do you without saying it in kind of a weird way, like, well, you're getting paid to do it. I don't want to sound like I'm being cheap.
Please.
How do you determine which clients that you decide to stand behind? When you looked at the vapor industry, was it because you were a vapor yourself and you understood the benefits and how it was helping you, and that was part of your own way of selling yourself to that crusade? Whereas you might think that we're killing all dolphins when it comes to tuna fish. So
right. Well, I mean, let me answer that in two parts. I mean, with most of our clients, again, most of our agency has a free market outlook. You could almost call it a libertarian, a philosophical approach to our clientele. And that's a big part of the strategy and recommendations we make for the clients, to stick up for and voice the market virtues of what you're doing. But with vaping, the backstory there's actually, really, really interesting. I'd never, come to have a client in this way. I had been engaging on social media about the issue for, I don't know, a year or more, just out of my own interest as a vapor and someone that cared about the issue and was reading the coverage. And I was bringing to that commentary and social media some of the tools and approaches that we use for our other clientele, such as media criticism, which we can, talk about a little more deeply in a few minutes. But I was, criticizing the leading national journalists that were covering the issue for all the various obvious flaws in their coverage. And I was, pointing out aspects of FDA's regulatory approach and how it was skirting the Administrative Procedures Act. And in other words, just making comments from my own professional clinical outlook. And Amanda Wheeler noticed this and saw that I was, getting corrections published and forcing the reporters to row back their work or exposing aspects of what FDA was doing. And so she DM'd me back channel and said, who are you working for? Like, this is, you're doing great stuff, but I can't figure out whose roster you're on. And I told her I'm not on anyone's roster. I'm just doing my own thing. And I care about the issue. And, I'm a professional who works in this space. And so we got together after that and had more in-depth conversation about what I would recommend for AVM. And that's how the client relationship got started. But it was very unusual because normally a client would come to us with a crisis or an issue that they wanted help with. And occasionally we'll reach out to potential clients and say, hey, we'd suggest you do, X, Y, and Z, and we might land a client that way. But in this case, it kind of happened just purely by osmosis.
Yeah. And we're very thankful. CounterPoint, put together the meeting that we had with Brian King, which kind of helped kick off him having other conversations with the industry. And it wasn't easy. It was, I would say, a good, 6 to 8 months of trying to get something on the books with that. And then constant, changing up the order.
I had to put that up. Anytime you say his name, we have to put that
That's
up.
fine. I'm not mad about that at all.
I am so terribly insulted.
But he kept trying to change the way that the interview was set up. And, we had this much time to ask questions. And obviously we did not back down on that. We said, no, this is what we agreed to, and this is what we're doing. And ultimately that's what we got. And, we owe that to, your guys' work ethic and how hard you guys worked on getting that done. It was not easy. And obviously we appreciate all the digging, the FOIA requests, and all of the digging through all the information that we get via FOIA requests and the nice emails that we send over to the FDA and, demanding, them to explain themselves, which they rarely ever do, but we do get some bites back, which is good. Even if the information's bad, we do still get some responses back.
Right.
So
I've got a curtain raiser for you a little bit later about, we heard back from the FDA on the letter you sent them about how many people have quit smoking by vaping. I'll tell you more about that in a minute.
Yeah, we're going to release that information soon in an epic Twitter thread. But yeah. Be prepared to be insulted. Just letting you guys know in advance.
But you're touching on something important, Allie, which is, bringing a clinical approach to that advocacy. And it starts with what you're pointing out with the research fundamentals, like deep dive research on particular reporters and news outlets and how they've covered it over time and where the flaws have been, or FOIA requests to the federal government, which have yielded, all kinds of key salient details for us. Or the way we did the ethics complaint about Senator Durbin, which relies on, a close read of Senate ethics rules. Mm-hmm. That's a clinical approach to advocacy that I think has been a real boost to AVM's efforts, because you guys have all the credibility in the world. You're on the front lines. You're dealing with the customers every day, and you're feeling the consequences of the regulations. So you're what we would call a first person to the debate. But by bringing that, those clinical fundamentals, it transforms your advocacy from simply, kind of shouting.
Yeah, you're helping us bring the receipts, or else we just look like a bunch of adults in our parents' basements tweeting. Totally.
Well, that's right. You notice that's how the press and the advocacy groups and the agencies would like to dismiss you as, all caps shouters who are irrelevant and don't require any attention. But the key strategically, I think, is to in the public square force them into a strategic binary, which is either answer on the particulars that we've presented, the substance that we've built from the research, or face being publicly discredited. So when we confront the New York Times, for example, as we have on their coverage with clinical journalism standards and substance, they can either engage with that or, as they have, try to ignore it, and the coverage gets discredited. So that's what we've done with the federal agencies too. It's not good enough. Like Brian King might wish to wave us away, or Caliph might say we're Twitterati, but the reality is you force them into that binary, and everything they've said becomes discredited if they don't engage with it. And that's why you've seen, for example, the stuff we forced out of Caliph on the webinar you mentioned is now being repeated in mainstream news outlets, because we forced that on him. Yeah. And same thing with the press too, that you see the New York Times is now even rowing back the way that it describes vaping. And now they're using, I think the phrase they use now is the growing consensus that vaping can help people quit cigarettes. That's a huge sea change for the way they cover the issue. And you see it at other outlets too. Like, Nick Florco's coverage, for example, is, dropped off a cliff, because they know that every time we, confront them, expose their funding, the flaws in their coverage, it gets, demolished in the eyes of their peers.
Yep.
So that's the clinical key, I think, is forcing that strategic choice on, putting the adversary's own credibility at stake in the confrontation.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely helped us a tremendous amount. I mean, it definitely helps people take us seriously when you start to show those facts and the funding and everything else that we've been able to uncover with you guys, which is amazing.
Yeah, Phillip, the funding's another great, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's such a crucial part of the research fundamentals in the comms advocacy. And my guys spent a good 6 weeks really diving deep on that. We've got some terrific research pros that found a whole horde of info and chased down the 990s on both sides. Like, not only TFK's 990s, for example, but Bloomberg Philanthropies, and Robert Wood Johnson's too. Like, no one even really knew that much about how Gates and Robert Wood Johnson were also funding these groups. So we found that through going through the last 10 years deep dive of their own 990s and where those grants were going. But now that that's been exposed, I mean, that information again is now becoming routinely cited in the coverage. I mean, I should tell you too, I shouldn't disclose the journalist, but in the next week or two tops, we're expecting a major piece from a tippity top, bold-faced name journalist, all about the state of the funding in prohibition advocacy and the way that it's being channeled, and that influence is being peddled. And a lot of that piece and the direction that it's going to go was prompted by the good research we had done into the funding. So another good example of how that clinical approach to the advocacy pays real dividends.
Yeah, sure does. Yes. Phillip, I'm sure you have a question for Jim.
Jim, it's really just great to finally meet you. I think I started following you shortly after, I think it was shortly after I met with Amanda and Greg and Alex and everyone in the bus up in Charleston. But I think before that, I think we both, we share a love of Bill Murray's films, a very intense, devoted, passionate love for that. So I'm very grateful for your input, the way in which you convey yourself with a certain amount of elegance, and how you don't mince words. And I appreciate you leading that charge in every possible way you can imagine. And I wanted to say, I read your piece, and you were talking about reporters, how these reporters, we are, showing them to have been, at the very least, neglectful, and at the very worst, wantonly, knowingly, neglectful of, writing these pieces and leaving out key information, not presenting both sides of the debate. You've got 5 critics who are all quoted, maybe a half of a quote incomplete from a supporter of vaping. And that's, we've seen enough of that. And I would love to see reporters like AP's, I think, Matt Perrone, is that his name?
Yeah.
I would have loved when he posted a photograph of, was it an American lung or American heart association? Is it a lung?
Horrendous malpractice.
And even in what he did was the right thing, is he posted it in a way, and he said, no, there was actually nothing cited for their claim that this vaping harms lungs, and he deleted that tweet. We can only assume he deleted that tweet after some back channel discussions with American Heart. We don't know. We don't exactly know. But instead of saying something along the lines of I wish I hadn't have done that, won't happen again.
Right.
That was poor form. He chose to block pretty much everyone here, from AVM to Allison to Greg to me. And it's unfortunate because, I think I said this on Twitter. It's incredible the sorts of things that people do when they are found to be in the wrong, when they're just plain wrong, and the things that they will do, the very poor choices that they make when they are found in the wrong. It's just incredible. But
it is. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it would be really wonderful if some of these reporters that we do call out for having been, one-sided on this issue would come around and say, you know what, perhaps I have been a little one-sided on this issue. You know what, I think I'm going to, say thank you for pointing that out. And I mean, you're not going to see that very often, but it would be lovely, instead of, getting a bunch of blocks, we see a couple people improve upon, their work, what they publish.
I know. I think that's right. And I looking forward to the day when, all of this coverage will be, regarded as laughably irresponsible. And I think that grows closer, every morning. But notice, I think a crucial thing to notice is all of the in the last 2 years, we've been trying to build relationships and foster coverage from more serious, what PR pros would call long form journalists. And these are commentators, columnists, deeper thinkers, more experienced credentialed reporters, as opposed to the ones that are on the FDA beat. And that includes, Jewett at the Times, Perone at AP, Foley at Politico, Florco at, ridiculous sponsored content stat news. But these are folks whose assignment is to cover FDA and what they're doing and saying on a day-to-day basis. But if you look at the longer form journalists, these are much more credible, much heavier hitting, more serious thinkers. And we've built a long roster now, approaching 24 of the leading thinkers from across the ideological spectrum. That includes John Tierney, who was a New York Times columnist, Veronique Derougy at Cato. We've had Seth Mnookin at the Boston Globe. I mean, notice that this is a guy writing for the left-leaning Boston Globe, who's the head of MIT's program in science writing, one of the most highly respected guys in the field, arguably the most credible, serious thinking science journalist in the country, who did a long 4,000-word piece all about how vaping coverage was being warped and distorted because of corrupt advocacy groups. I mean, that's like a mushroom cloud. Compared to all the reporters that I've just mentioned who are on the FDA beat, Seth Mnookin is like on Mount Olympus. Those guys are hacks compared to him. So when we can build that larger roster, it demonstrates to the whole field, the whole broader field of journalism, that we're on the side of serious thinking, nuanced analysis, deeper substantiation. And at the same time, it's crucial to expose the ways that the FDA beat writers are being corrupted. And you're touching on a crucial point here, Phil, which is they're not simply lazy or negligent. It's being willfully slanted. AP is taking millions of dollars from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Stat News, in the tank for Bloomberg Philanthropies. Again,
1A, same story.
That's right. Outright bribery. And the New York Times, I don't think they've got I'd love to see if they have a financial connection. We haven't discovered that, but theirs is more ideological. In their world, anything that the federal government does is ipso facto a good thing. They are pro-regulatory, pro-big government, and they hate business. And they hate, the nicotine business more than any other. So for them, it's an ideological impulse that drives their framing of it. But when we point that out, by making a clinical case for that's substantiated and argued in a good faith way, not in all capital letters or with exclamation points, but instead regimented and with hard basis.
And also from all sides of the ideological spectrum.
Well, that's right.
I mean, this is no longer a left-leaning or right-leaning thing. We've got everyone from the Boston Globe to the National Review, writing, why aren't more people, speaking frankly about the truth of tobacco harm reduction? And
that's right.
That is what got me involved in this in the first place, because there weren't many people, I guess, of my particular political slant speaking up. And I thought to myself, well, for God's sakes, what the hell's wrong with you? This isn't about politics. This is about saving lives. I've never owned a share of I have no financial stake in the vaping industry. And I'm compelled to do this because it helped me when nothing else ever would have 13 plus years ago. So I am absolutely here for it. And I think it's really something that is truly given me a great deal of satisfaction, is to see not only, like you said, those mountainous like Seth, people who from the Boston Globe come around and start challenging people's opinions and their belief systems on this particular subject, but they're coming from all sides of all ends of the political spectrum.
I think that's really right. And the reason we've put such an emphasis on media criticism is because the prohibition movement wouldn't really be possible without that help and collaboration with the press. And that's why they've put such heavy emphasis on it. I mean, they're spending millions of dollars to bribe these journalists. They've got, themselves, they've got heavy hitting PR agencies that are flacking them every day. So much of their energy goes into that front. And so we've got to it's crucial that we discredit that and short circuit their ability to do it. So if you notice now, compared to where we were 2 years ago, we've now got this broad range of ecumenical writers on a much higher level of credibility, seriousness, and impact. And they've been left to kind of the dregs of regional media, what I would call Crayola journalism, like the morning shows, or the tabloids. Notice they're constantly flacking stuff to Daily Mail and the New York Post. They've been left, just with that spade and shovel, kind of gutter journalism. Whereas we're now dominating the serious, heavy hitting, impactful journalism space. And look, that's no small thing. I mean, let's remember, we are up against adversaries that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars annually. And, so, I mean, you guys are punching so far above your weight. It's an amazing case study, I think.
The very fact that we have these people really double checking their facts and thinking twice before they come out with some piece where they quote nothing but the Meredith Berkmans and the Dorian Furmans of this world. They're not going to publish that as quickly and without second thought as they might have in the past. And I think
that's
a
right.
Huge accomplishment.
That's right. And that's an important thing to notice too. It's kind of the reverse negative of a photograph. It's comparing what they don't cover now, what they aren't including now, as opposed to what they did, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and that's been very, very striking. The New York Times is now, openly conceding that vaping helps people quit. Stat News now has to include the funding of all the sources that they collaborate with. Same thing with AP. They've begun including the details on the funding. And don't forget too that they've been unable. A lot of them have been unable to answer the basic questions we've put to them about why Matt Perrone took down his tweet about the American Lung Association. His failure to do that shows everybody else on the beat, every other health editor, every other reporter, journalist that covers these issues. This guy can't even justify his own reporting. It's ipso facto discredited.
Yeah, and from the Associated Press, no less, one that I would have expected to actually stand up and own their mistake.
You would, and others too. I mean,
the opposite happened.
The one that surprises me the most is NPR. I mean, they're getting a boatload of money from the Prohibition foundations also, and we pointed that out. They've got a public editor. They're one of the few outlets left that still has an ombudsman, and she's actually a very serious credentialed person named Kelly McBride, who's a fellow at an outfit called Pointer Institute, which is kind of like the high cathedral of journalism, and they're the most important ethics watchdog in news media. And we brought all this to her attention with repeated 1 sec, sweet girl. I'm being asked for French fries.
You and me both.
She's one of the most important ethics thinkers in media. So we brought all this to her attention. She refused to answer it. We finally got her on the phone. She hung up on us when she found out who was calling, and we exposed all that. But it's the dereliction of duty there is really ghastly and inexcusable. But the point I'm making is that by exposing it, we're able to show that to the more serious, heavy hitter, long form writers that we're talking to. Examine for yourself how we've confronted these news outlets with these facts, and you come to your own conclusion about whether our substance is legit, about whether their posture has integrity or not, and write as you please. And it puts us on what I would call the high ground of credibility, and it exposes all the chicanery that the day-to-day beat writers have been up to. And that lets everyone from readers to other journalists, even policymakers, the Tobacco Harm Reduction Caucus, see for themselves that we're not just, self-interested nicotine peddling profiteers, but that we have a legitimate, credible point that the highfalutin, holier than thou NPR can't even muster a syllable to rebut.
Yeah.
And it was very nice.
All right, hold on. We're going to start off you with a little bit to get to know Jim questions, okay?
Okay, great.
Jim, your first job, and did you quit or get fired?
My first job, you'll be amused to know, I took a year off between high school and college, and I was an elevator operator in the U.S. Capitol building.
Wow,
And
that's
yes,
cool.
it was cool. It was a great job. I knew every member of Congress on a first name basis. And I got to see how legislation got made, to my immense horror.
The
And
story you must have
think
heard in
that's-
that elevator too.
yeah, exactly. Stuck in an elevator. Yeah, I think that's what turned me into a libertarian. And I got to know the great Mike Sinar, one of the all-time tobacco fighting titans in U.S. congressional history. That was my first job, and
Well
didn't get
done.
fired. I went to college.
You went to college. All right, this is the tough one. You may upset half this group. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I will eat any kind of pizza. I'm a pizza omnivore.
That is the right answer.
Exactly.
Tim's got a couple questions that we have starred from our viewers, so he's going to hit you with a couple of those right
Please.
now.
Actually, yeah, we got the list is building. So we'll go back up to the top to Addy Tooney. He wanted to know, Jim, specifically, had you reached or have you experienced any pushback directly from Bloomberg and his sycophants or the media itself?
Yes. Yes. Several of the journalists that we've confronted have tried to, do what they regard as exposés on me. Nick Florko at Stat News, for example, has a whole thread about my work in other industries, and they try to paint me as a chainsaw PR guy who works for heavy industry. And I wear that with a badge of honor. I stand behind all the work I've done. It's all based on clinical journalism standards. I'm using the yardstick that those guys themselves publish on their so-called mission statements. And what's more, everything we do is out in the open. We're not like some PR firm that does stuff in back alleys or looks through garbage or, uses third parties. We say things in a first person voice. We urge our clients to stick up for themselves openly and proudly. And, we're using journalism standards, and I'll stand behind every syllable we've written for our clients. And, guys like Nick Florko and Matt Perrone can go jump in a lake.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because I was doing some research on your background to try to understand where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to stumble onto this 2011 article, which you kind of like framed it and said they kind of come after you. And this, I don't know who this knucklehead is, but he said he called you an unusually aggressive PR flack representative. So
right.
So that was going to be one of my questions. I'm like, what exactly is an aggressive PR firm? But that's really not even my question. So I'll get to mine, but real quick, Steve Todnam had a real quick one. Are you a member of CASA?
I am not, but I'm a huge admirer of theirs, and I would gladly join. I have had many a conversation with Alex, and love the work they're doing there. And yet another example of how I think AVM and your whole movement stands out, because the collaboration and cooperation between consumer advocates and industry advocates, rank and file consumers, the various businesses have all really done a great job of locking arms and forming a united front. And that is very unusual for advocacy of this kind. I mean, the other industries I work in can only dream of having that kind of cooperative, united effort. So it takes a lot of forbearance from all the different parties. I mean, as we all know, there's many a time when folks in vape advocacy have various complaints about others. And, I too have, fallen short of God's ideal in my forbearance, but CASA's been great about that. And I salute them for their work.
Yeah. No, I mean, great consumer advocacy. Great, basically they're all just consumer advocates themselves. So it kind of puts everybody on a level playing field, because they identify with everyone pretty much equally. So that led me sort of to my question when really the Bloomberg one came up. So it would seem that a lot of your work is reactionary or proactive against a lot of the messaging that comes from government agencies or people who kind of get to sit at the table, necessarily the ones that are on the forefront. Do you find yourself having, especially with the vapor industry, because it's specific to that, do you find yourself having or finding a way to help kind of combat some of the Wild West ants that are out there that kind of peddle some of the real truly false information, these things that crop up, like we're all going to have ED and our hair is going to fall out and we're going to lose our teeth. And,
Right.
and, and that sends enough shivers down people who don't have a dog in the fight spine. They're like, oh, vaping's bad, and all that other stuff. So, and then conversely to that, do you find yourself, or have you ever had to refute or challenge with any PR work, the WHO or the FCTC, even larger bodies than that?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, we have fought an alphabet soup of federal agencies on behalf of clients, from Department of Justice to FBI, Securities Exchange Commission, FDA, many a time, Environmental Protection Agency. So that's a regular and long-standing part of what we do, and that's because co-opting those agencies is such a cookie cutter strategic approach for the adversaries of all sorts of businesses. And to sort of answer the first part of your question, you're making me think back to other parts of my career where we've done projects on similar, like my tuna clients, for example. The big three tuna companies are constantly fighting the same kinds of health scare claims from the same kinds of activist groups pushed by the same news outlets.
Right.
In their case, it's you mentioned whether the tuna is dolphin safe, but there's also the more outlandish claim that tuna's got neurotoxins and mercury in it. It's going to give your kid brain damage if they have a tuna sandwich. I mean, that sounds outlandish. It's complete scientific bunk, but you tell that to a suburban mom, and she's going to think twice at the grocery store. Yeah. And it's they
throw the ED in there.
Yeah, right. And so, and there's that happens in all sorts of other issues too. I remember early in my career, I fought what were known then as the diaper wars, and the anti-plastic advocates were insisting, like on the front page of USA Today, that diapers were the #1 trash in landfills, and it's going to overflow all our landfills and cause pollution till kingdom come. Does that sound familiar? Remember the stories just in the last month about, oh no, disposable vapes are the biggest trash, #1 trash problem in the world. Tired, stupid, dumbass tactic but they use it constantly. And so we fight that sort of thing routinely and go after federal agencies too. I mean, yes. And you've got to do that. I mean, at the risk of belaboring the point, you touched on a minute earlier, Tim, that the journalists regard that as ultra aggressive or super gung ho chainsaw PR flack. Well, look,
that you would have the gall to go after government agency, regulatory agencies. How dare you, sir?
Right. That we have the temerity to challenge the high holy clergy of journalism.
There was a time when the press, that was what they were for, actually. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a hardliner. I'm not sure there ever were glory days of the press, and I think Woodward and Bernstein are a couple of complete hacks themselves. So we dive that deep if you want. But the point is, most PR, the thing to understand is most PR agencies and the whole PR industry writ large is about collaborating with news media. They do publicity and they place stories and they trade favors and they form relationships, and they're trying to help the news media to, accentuate the positive of their clients. But when you're in a crisis situation or you're fighting a contested, disputed issue, there's no amount of, gin and tonics or hockey tickets that are going to, persuade the New York Times not to crucify you. And so when we challenge news media, again, using their standards, not insisting this is what we prefer, not threatening them, do it our way or else, but saying, here's where you got this wrong. Here's where your facts are inaccurate. Here's where your sources are corrupt. When you do that, it's rare. Most journalists rarely encounter that kind of substantiated pushback. They deal with angry readers all the time, or CEOs get hot under the collar and yell at them, but rarely do they have to really grapple with clinical analysis of their content that puts their credibility at stake. And you can imagine, we call it the cat in the bathtub effect. It's like they go absolutely bananas when you confront them in that fashion.
Yeah.
And the most violent reactions often come when they are literally shown a mirror and they don't much like what they see. And unfortunately, that's been the case more often than not. But we are seeing, I wanted to say, Catherine Foley's recent piece in Political, that was a nice, little pleasant surprise.
I wonder how that happened. Yeah.
It happened because of some very effective pushback from all of these organizations, the constellation of pro-harm reduction organizations. And I'm very, very pleased to see that.
It was good. I just wish that they'd be interviewing somebody from the small vapor space as well. You know, that would be nice.
She still has a little way to go.
Well, you notice, yes, it's not a she hasn't had a conversion. You notice it's a CYA maneuver. She's trying to seal off, you know, those avenues of ingress that have discredited her past coverage.
Yeah, exactly. She has taken notice of how she's literally been taken apart by the facts and the well-known things that are obvious about vaping, that her coverage has been found unfortunately wanting before, and now she is double checking and watching her P's and Q's and coming out with a piece that's actually worth reading. And I think that's right. That's right.
I just hesitate to give her I hesitate to give her too much good faith credit. I mean, let's not forget, one of Politico's big advertisers is Tobacco Free Kids. And what's more, we spent at least 6 months, maybe a year, having back channel private dialogue with her and her editors over the phone and in writing, trying hard to get them to sober up and pointing out the flaws in her reporting. And at their request, we sent them a whole laundry list of viable angles that included hard substance on stuff that hadn't been covered and that had huge national policy implications, right in their bullseye, in other words. Gift-wrapped exclusives for them. And they threw it right in the parrot cage. And so at that point, any sympathy I might have had is out there.
I wasn't aware of that long history. That must have been unbearably frustrating.
Yeah, we tweeted a couple times. You can look back in our Twitter history. I should mention too, we're in the process of putting all of AVM's, all the Twitter threads we've ever done are going to be housed in one clearinghouse on AVM's website, so people can go back and read all the box set, the greatest hits.
It's the greatest hits. I love it.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Amazing work.
I have a question for you there. Can you see it?
No, say again.
Oh, with the latest runs of court cases, this is from ROG. Do you think that these will be productive?
Yeah, I do. I mean, for as much as we are giving them hell on the press front and exposing, all the unethical shenanigans of the advocates, I really do think that the showdown at the OK Corral is in the federal courts. And I think our only chance of really prevailing is probably going to be there. I mean, we're given as good as we're getting on the media fight and against the ants, but we have to win that in federal court. Now, the good news is there's 8 active cases. There's already circuit splits. We know that Justice Kavanaugh has, forced FDA to send him a legal brief justifying their conduct in the regulations. That's an incredibly good, strong sign that his clerks are zeroed in, that he's going to be the point person for the court on, he's going to be taking a lead role in the way the court analyzes it if and when they take the case. And we also know that FDA is dead to rights. I mean, hell's bells. We just did that great amicus last week on the case that Ilya Shapiro is the lawyer for, challenging Chevron,
A doctrine.
The Chevron doctrine. Thank you. And if FDA loses there, which it looks very likely they will, they are going to be, both knees wobbling and boxing gloves down. We're going to be ready for the big time XX KO. So I think the whole shooting match is basically riding on the outcome in the federal courts.
Yeah. Yep. So do you want to give these good people that took their time out to hang out with us tonight a little sneak preview of what we are going to be talking about with the response from the FDA on adults?
Yes. We we sent a letter. Brian King and Caleb, as you guys I'm sure have noticed, have been touting the way that they're going to be more responsive, and they promised Reagan-Udall Foundation, we're going to engage more with stakeholders. Yeah, engage more with stakeholders, don't you know? And they even set up a new office of an ombudsman there, as if they're not spending enough money already, who's supposed to be promptly responsive. So we decided to test that and see just how responsive they are and how long it would take them and whether the ombudsman's even awake. And so we put to them the most important, central, straightforward question in this entire issue, which is, how many people, in FDA's estimation, have quit smoking cigarettes with nicotine vaping? And we sent that to the ombudsman, and we said we've been trying to get an answer out of Brian King and Dr. Califf in the agency for years now, unsuccessfully. So could you, Mr. Ombudsman, whose entire job it is to shake loose this info, kindly look into that for us? And we got a letter back just this week from a scientist at FDA who they designated to respond to us, named Farrelly, filled, as you might imagine, with academic jargon, flim-flam, lip service, double speak, and we are going to shred that like a julienne salad in an epic thread that will be posted probably this week, if not the beginning of next week. So that's a big one we got upcoming. And then another fun one you'll be amused to hear. We did a little more deep dive research on parents against vaping. And
please,
this is a good one. This is more of a lighter, brighter item, but it sheds a lot of light on their mindset, which is we discovered that
assuming there is one.
Yeah. We discovered that in 2002, the founder and head of PAVE, Meredith Berkman, had filed a $50 million lawsuit against the manufacturers of, I kid you not, Pirate Booty, claiming that Pirate Booty had misled her about how many grams of fat were actually in each package, and that therefore made her fatter. And
oh my God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was deceived by Pirate Booty, and it got.
I'm having an aphasic moment. I really have no idea what's happening. Pirate Booty, for the love of holy.
Yeah, her brother-in-law was the lawyer who drew up the papers for her, and incredibly, they got
all in the family.
They extorted a huge amount of money out of the manufacturers of Pirate Booty, several $100,000.
Yeah, they're going to settle. They don't want to go to court.
It's freaking popcorn.
Sort of like suits only a brother-in-law.
It's incredible. And it also that whole case started when, according to Meredith, she couldn't stop her 2-year-old from requesting Pirate Booty. So because of Meredith Berkman's inability to parent her children, we've now dragged in the New York State Supreme Court, the Food and Drug Administration, Centers for Disease Control, the federal courts, New York Times, Associated Press, on and on. All because this woman, rich lady on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, is unable to deprive her children of Pirate Booty.
You can't make this shit up.
You really can't. Possibly.
A 2-year-old says Pirate Booty in my head right now.
Right.
Is that not the antithesis of everything that they stand for? I mean, now that I hear this story, and I honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't know what Pirate Booty is. I looked it up. I mean, I know what it is in the literary sense. Okay, I didn't realize it was just stupid popcorn. Like she's upset over freaking popcorn. But
it's like the most innocuous consumer product you could possibly.
And we peddle that and say, "Well, just eat popcorn. It's healthier for you." Like instead of diving into the Doritos, go right to the popcorn. But that's like effectively the antithesis of who they stand for. And you said, her inability to parent her child, and that's really their sole campaign around PAVE and vaping. Is like let's spread all these conspiracies about vaping and laud it, how people are trying to shut it down, when and dare I say that it's probably not 100% actually could happen, but it's like, just parent your child. Like, if you want the kids to stay away from it, educate them, explain to them that it's not meant for them, it's meant for this, and and be a real parent instead
Why
of just
parent your child when you could just sue them every time and make some money off of it? Like,
correct, but they work so hard to constitute a nanny state situation where it's like, let's just bring the government in to take care of our kids and regulate everybody. And oh, by the way, because we can't control the little rugrats, we're going to take it away from adults too.
Right. I guarantee you, my mother was befuddled at the number of times that she actually gave me Cocoa Puffs, as opposed to the number of times she wanted to give me Cocoa Puffs. Never once did it enter her mind to sue the sue the company and go to the federal government for answers. Well, let's just see. That is
discount chocolate is far too tempting.
It's far too tempting. We are temptation. The whole 9 yards. Yes, the pleasure police. Here we are again.
But those light items, I think, are that's not obviously not a very heavy, deep thinking thread we're going to do. But those lighter items, I think, are important for. They have a galvanizing effect, I think, on our entire vape community, and they give us a morale boost, and they help energize our followers and fans and our base. And it's like what we were talking before. It's so important for every part of the advocacy community in vaping to stick together, know that we're in the same cause. Again, we're in a life or death struggle. The industry as a whole, they're trying to choke us out of existence.
Yeah.
And that can be demoralizing. I mean, we are up against Godzillas. I mean, the stakes, the imbalance on this project is greater than any one I've worked on in my career, probably.
And a little levity is necessary.
That's right.
Thank you very much
keep
for
our
knowing
morale
that.
up and expose.
And it also puts things in perspective as well, to look at who you're dealing with and the past behavior of just clearly not being able or capable of parenting your own child, which is a little ridiculous.
I would hope never to become that self-righteous myself.
All right, Jim, I got one for you. I know you only said an hour, so we got one for you. We asked our guests this question. The first song you remember learning all the words to as a teenager, and you don't have to sing some of the words to it, but if you want to, we'd appreciate it.
Or we will.
I've got no singing voice. I'll have to think that I've been so subsumed in children's songs. I'm gonna.
We've sung the Teapot song on this.
If he says Baby Shark right now,
no. I'm thinking like there's Doc McStuffins.
What do you remember learning as a teenager? All the words.
Well, Phil, you're making me think about it. You and I've had a few, I think, musical interactions on the Twitter. I think you and I sort of come from the same Gen X alt punk sort of world. And
God bless you, sir.
You're making me think of the old Ramones shows I used to go to at the small clubs in DC.
Yeah.
And those guys are actually a good role model. I mean, they were more than just anti-authority, but they were like, I don't know, one of the first really truth-speaking bands. They weren't like Sting and Bono and these, I've been tasked with saving the world kind of rock stars.
Right.
They were like
Self-important crusaders. They're actually like
rock stars. Yeah.
They were like real grungy, dirty, like, hey, this is the way it is. Fuck you if you don't like it, rock stars. No,
That's right.
Ramones song you want to sing a few bars to.
Yeah. And the other one I'll think of, I won't sing it, but the other one I'll point out to you is there's a great song in the Steely Dan catalog called Only a Fool Would Say That. And if you look at the lyrics of that, it's one of the great rebukes of the, idealistic, let's change the world into utopia. All these Bloomberg, Berkman, baby boomer, utopians, insisted all that stuff back then. And that's when this whole kind of Puritan government must save us all movement really gained momentum. And Steely Dan in that song drop kicked them into the sun. So I can recommend, although I can't sing it, I can recommend it.
I'm reading the lyrics as you speak.
Tim's gonna sing it now.
I don't know the melody. So
I think Taking It to the Streets was the first song I ever learned how to play. Well, rock song I ever learned how to play on piano after I had to learn how to play stuff like, The Entertainer, blah, blah, blah.
But before I forget, John, just to touch back on a serious, I want to give you guys a curtain raiser on a serious item we have coming up, which is we are in conversation with a few leading lawyers, federal appellate lawyers who specialize in First Amendment law. And we are trying to find an intrepid lawyer to work for us pro bono to bring a case against FDA on First Amendment grounds. All the cases now are based on the Administrative Procedures Act and the way that FDA has formulated the regs, but they have their chins stuck out so far on First Amendment grounds because they are restraining vape companies from saying what is demonstrably true, that is, vaping helps people quit cigarettes. And that is a prima facie, no doubt about it, totally forbidden restriction of speech. And they will get their head knocked clean off their shoulders in the Supreme Court if we can bring that case. So I have very, very high hopes for that, not only because it's so straightforward, not only because the facts are absolutely indisputable, cut and dried, but also because that's the kind of case that could get fast tracked.
Yeah.
So again,
So we're looking for someone who specializes in constitutional law to take
we're
this
having
forward.
conversations with some of them now. I mean, look, we're all ears for suggestions. If anyone, readers, listeners, anyone in our group has ideas on who might be willing to, snap the football and run that case, that would be great. But we are actively trying to recruit an attorney to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Tell your friends.
I mean, that would be groundbreaking. I mean, not only would it be huge for the industry to be able to speak to our customers in that truthful, conscientious fashion, but it would have, a ripple effect throughout all federal agencies and the way they're restricting commercial speech. Right. Maybe this is a little bit.
I was going to say, it's too bad Jonathan Adler is a professor. I don't know if he can actually practice at the same time.
Yeah, he's actually given us some good leads, and he's also been extremely helpful in his analysis. And what's more, he's offered to be a kind of intellectual resource, which will give huge confidence to we hope to a First Amendment lawyer who'd want to take the case. In other words, it's not just chainsaw nicotine flack Jim McCarthy trying to, solicit the lawyer. It's Case Western Reserve's Jonathan Adler saying, who would like to stand on the steps of the Supreme Court and be a national hero?
Yeah. And he writes on a number of issues. Agree with him or disagree. His work on this issue has been spectacular. Really,
that's another great example. Another great example. You hold that up to the new writers we're talking to, or the THR caucus members, and say, who do you think has more credibility, John Adler or the guy that is policing convenience stores for truck stop Viagra, Nick Florco? Like, which of these guys do you think might have a little keener sense of what's going on here?
Yeah. Sorry, Dorian Furman doesn't get into this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if that could be a case that could be actually worked on and presented, and we've said this several times on the show, that everything seems so lopsided. So we're restricted from speaking out of actual facts, or what we could say are our facts that can be backed up with science and actual work that's been done in the industry. Whereas they can literally come out and say whatever they want to, put a scar on vaping. And it just seems so unfair. It's like, how can you tell me I'm going to get ED and my hair is going to fall out and I'm going to lose all my teeth? And you have the weakest evidence to support that claim anyway, because it's always followed up with might, could, probably, all the other disclaimers. Yet we can't go to people who we genuinely want to help get off of smoking and say, this will help you quit. That's a truth.
Notice too that even the litigation of that case would bring all of those arguments to the fore and would lay bare the intellectual dishonesty of what FDA has done. So not only would it be a landmark win for free speech, but it would also allow us to shatter the whole fictitious, deceitful framing that the agency and the others have put in place.
Absolutely. All the things that keep people smoking because they're too afraid to try vaping because of all this crap that they've been saying, and people believe it. We come in contact with that every single day.
That's a great question,
right? Semantics.
Good question there from James R.
He's our pirate booty on the show.
Australia's proposed. Why don't you guys read it out?
Yeah. Do you think Australia's proposed direction is going to influence other world markets such as the US or the UK?
I think a little bit. You see some other countries that were formerly in the UK sphere of influence, like in my beloved Ireland, for example, that are trying to follow some of what Australia is doing, much to my dismay. But the UK's own, path on this, looks to me pretty solid. They have a solid keel in the water on it. And so I don't think it's going to affect what the UK is doing. And the way that the UK steers is going to, I think, have more influence, I hope, over former countries in the English-speaking world. And I don't think it'll affect the US's policy at all. If anything, so much of what's happening in Australia is the ambitious fever dreams of what, the US advocates have established and would lay out and want to do. Australia is doing what Matt Myers would do if it weren't for people standing, between him and our freedom.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I know you got to go, right, Jim?
Yeah.
I can stay a few more minutes. I've got
Okay.
Eight French fries are still on the plate. So.
All right.
Okay. All right. I got an 8 French fry question. Hold on 1 second.
You had an hour alone in the White House. What would you do?
Yeah.
All alone by yourself in 1 hour.
So Mallory, is because Jim, you had talked about how you go after some of
question already, Tim.
Oh, was that? I didn't hear it asked.
I said if you had an hour in the White House all by yourself, what would you do?
Well, it's actually I've been thinking about that a lot. As a matter of fact, I am good, not good pals, but professional pals with one of Ron DeSantis's top comms aides, whose name is Christina Pushaw. She's great, really super brave, intrepid, media scalping, hard charger, who I really admire. And I've been in touch with her for a number of years now because we both come at the media criticism in a similar fashion. And they and their campaign have been saying a lot of really good things about vaping. It's not ideal, not perfect. It's still being formed, but it is absolutely in the ballpark of what we would want. And their contempt for FDA is matches our own. So I have very high hopes that if by luck of how the chips fall, DeSantis gets into the White House, at least with regard to our issue, it would be fantastic. And so I've been working behind the scenes to try to help bring her closer to the light on the issue and bolster the way they're talking about it. And if I were in the White House after the next January after the next election, I think the first thing we would do is name Amanda Wheeler the new head of the FDA.
There you go.
For tobacco
we can all get
products.
behind that.
Seconded.
Yeah, there would be an absolute St. Valentine's Day bureaucratic massacre, and hundreds of heads would roll down Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, if I had my way, we'd burn FDA to the ground and salt the earth so that nothing could grow there again.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, for those people who haven't read the article that you wrote in the National Review, it was the November 2020 article. Great review. Why do business journalists hate business? That's a very good article. Well done.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Well, it shows. I mean, I think it shows the way that over the last 25 years, the national press has become symbiotic with activist groups and ideological actors, and they try to drive pro-regulatory, pro-government outcomes. And in that worldview, businesses are fundamentally evil. Left to their own devices, they're going to kill people. All they care about is money. I mean, these are just Crayola cookie cutter, 60s agitprop that you would hear from the Marxist Academy, and it's just so tired and destructive, and you see that cynicism in their work. I mean, you'd think that journalists like Perone and NPR and Stat would be ashamed when they were exposed for taking bribery from their own sources. I mean, the disgrace of that can hardly be overstated. Yeah. And yet they've been so long in this corrupt environment where they and those sources are dependent on one another to drive a political outcome that they're oblivious to their own disgrace. And it's just, it's horrific to look at.
To see and to see them not notice that it is even.
Hold on. Go ahead, Tim.
Do you want me to ask the Mallory question?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I cut you off. I didn't hear you.
Oh no, I thought you had said it was already asked. That's what I misheard. All right. Which is a good Senate hearing answer. I misheard. So Mallory asked, because Jim, you said you go headlong and discredit a lot of these journalists that put out false verbiage. But her question is, why don't we see positive articles in media about vaping? I see too many journalists just deleting their article with no follow-up or just blocking everyone that shows the science of vaping.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer to that gets to the heart of the strategy that we're trying to put in place in AVM's advocacy, which is that it's a kind of there's a kind of what I would call journalism groupthink, in which the established narrative has been put in place. Vaping is bad. There's a sense that it's sort of lowbrow, classless. All of the pejorative notions about vaping were established early on by big money outfits, the big foundations, which paid the body part associations, co-opted outfits like Vital Strategies, and began running that narrative through their own comms efforts. And once that's in place with New York Times, NPR, AP, Washington Post, if you're a reporter at, I don't know, the Detroit News or the San Fran Chronicle, or a producer, a junior producer at CBS, and you want to buck that trend and say, hey, wait a second, that's not what's going on. That narrative is not correct. Here's another way to look at it. To do that, you have to, first of all, summon the personal integrity to take on these, heavy hitters in your own industry, places where you yourself might want to work in the future. And you also have to endure. So you got to have a huge amount of backbone and integrity just to begin.
Yeah.
And then to get out there and do that and buck that trend, you're risking a huge amount of professional credibility. And so the short answer is they're too scared to do it. And breaking that groupthink can be very tough. But the way to do it, again, I think is what we're doing with our strategies, establishing this wide range of ecumenical, long-form, serious thinking journalists like Seth Mnookin, for example. So a producer at CBS who's thinking about going a different direction in this issue, as CBS is beginning to do, can look at Seth Mnookin's work and say, hey, wait a second. I was scared of NPR, the New York Times, and American Lung Association. Seth Mnookin's the smartest guy at MIT. He's the head of the science journalism writing project. I can do this. So shattering that groupthink is crucial to what we do. But the short answer, Mallory, is they're living in that groupthink bubble and lack the personal integrity to take it on.
Yeah,
Great.
like a lot of politicians we know.
Go ahead, Philip. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I completely forgot what I was going to say. But I think what I had to ask was along the lines of what Mallory yes, I think Mallory just covered it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to think about, guys, is we shouldn't hesitate to confront reporters, and it shouldn't just be up to us. Like, anyone can take part in this. And some of my, fondest moments in all the campaign we've been doing so far are when other parts of the vape community jump into those threads we're having from journalists and say, hey, wait a second. I'm a reader. Okay. I looked at that work and I too was perplexed at the points that are being made here. So we can all take part in that. And that's one of the other great strengths that the vape community has, is we can swarm and act as a kind of hive mind in the advocacy, and our adversaries lack that entirely. Notice all of the announcements, threads they do, big PR stunts. There is a dump truck full of money going into those comms efforts, and they get nothing.
Most of the comments are
engagement on all their stuff, which we've pointed out and exposed. But that's one of our huge advantages. So let's take advantage of it. It's like the great Pat Buchanan used to say on the campaign trail: "Don't wait for orders, just ride toward the sound of the guns."
Yeah.
And you have to love it. I'm sorry. I was going to say, you have to love it when you see, Ben Dreyfus talking about why is a pack of Juul pods, twice, why is a pack of, cigarettes, half the price of a pack of Juul pods? This makes no sense. Yeah. One is lethal to man and beast. The other kills no one. I love it when Ben decides to get on his, and he's a vapor. He's a really funny guy. He's a good person to follow.
And we got to make it okay for those folks to speak out too. I mean, there's any number of celebrities and high profile individuals. And I'm always chagrined, like when the Fox News hosts are like embarrassed that someone saw a Juul on their desk, or, and when Hollywood actors who have quit smoking by vaping are reluctant to speak out, or an NFL coach, gets made fun of for vaping on the sideline. We need to create a space in the public conversation on social media in particular, in which it's okay and say, hey, wait a second, I'm saving my own life and other people's too.
Right. Oh, the media just is all over it. You would think that they're on the sidelines shooting up heroin the way that they react to them. And I don't even know if they would react that way if they were smoking cigarettes. I think it's gotten so hostile towards vaping, and it's insane. Like, I'm sorry that I quit smoking. Like, and people should be more confident to stand up for themselves. But I feel like the stigma is almost worse now than it was in the past.
Well, there was like a story, I don't know how long ago, it was like maybe 20 or 30 years ago, where everyone in baseball got upset. And I can't remember the name of the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates at the time, but he used to smoke in the dugout. And he was told he wasn't allowed to smoke anymore. And how the general public, the NBA or the MLB fans, got so upset that he wasn't Jim Leland, right? Is it Jim Leland? They were so upset that he wasn't allowed to smoke in the dugout. And I'm like thinking, why can't we have that kind of support? I mean, here they are.
I have his card somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was one of the managers of the Miami Dolphins or something like that. That was vaping last year,
he was
got like just completely blown
attacked. But here they praise Jim Leland. Let Jim Leland smoke in the dugout. He's been smoking for years in the dugout. But I got a quick question for you, because this is something I've noticed, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but a lot of the negative media that is about vaping kind of stays in the local news thread. When I mean like TV, I have you noticed, is there a reason why all the networks are covering it, but not the bigger shows? Is there a reason why the bigger shows are staying away from this topic?
Yes. And that's a great question. And I think the answer is that the national press, and I mean the major the broadcast networks, the national dailies like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, they know that we're watching closely with a clinical eye, and that we can exact consequences on their credibility when they color outside the lines. But the local press couldn't care less. Those guys are like playing Nerf basketball in the newsroom. So they're easy pickings for the PR operations that are being run out of Bloomberg, Vital Strategies, TFK, and others. And the entire story gets packaged for them. Every element, the sources, the quotes, the data, they even outline the story with the bullet points. So all the reporter has to do is paint by numbers. And for, cash-strapped, lazy, hacky journalists at regional outlets or the tabloids, that's just what we would call in PR rip and run copy. So that's why it's happening. But notice, we've come a long way. I mean, the giant multi-million-dollar PR machine of the prohibition movement has been relegated to simply flacken their copy in these lower tier garbage outlets, or the ones that they've outright bribed. And whereas the most serious people who've looked at this issue are all skewing our way. So it's frustrating, I know. And we do go after some of those local ones when we have the bandwidth to do it. It's important to fight there too. But if anything, it's a good sign that their outreach is becoming more, marginal, and ours is becoming more prestige.
Yeah. I have I kind of have that feeling like I remember my dad, that was important. Like not the 11 o'clock news, but 2020 or the bigger shows. I can't remember the shows that were out in the 70s and 80s, but they were the ones that my parents' generation focused on. Yeah, they watched the 10 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news, but they weren't really focused on what was being said. They were just it was just kind of background noise.
Well, look, the good news here is I think we are really close, on the verge, I'd say, of landing a big narrative shattering piece like that. I'll report to you one of our, I don't know if I want to call it a failing, but a brave attempt we made that came very close. A few months ago, we had been in conversation for about 6 months with a top producer at 60 Minutes at CBS. Multiple phone calls, in-depth conversations, gave them a ton of data. He'd spoken to a bunch of different sources that we had suggested. And the anchor the correspondent that was going to do it, believed in what we were doing. And I really thought we were going to grab that brass ring, because a piece like that would be a mushroom cloud. They ran it upstairs to the leadership at CBS News, and they nixed it. Now they didn't do an anti-vaping story, but they didn't do the pro one either. However, the fact that we were able to get in the door, the fact that we had a correspondent and a producer who had seen the wisdom of what we were arguing, that it got all the way to the top at CBS News shows me that we are close to breaking through the castle walls.
Yeah.
And it might not be at that outlet. Like I think the way that Tony Dokapil, for example, who we had hammered for a year for the CBS morning news shows, irresponsible vape coverage, the way that he rode that back and pointed out the Swap to Stop campaign in the UK. And that was the first time that a major national news outlet had said anything remotely like that about vaping. And it's another example of the fracture that's happening in what seems like an impenetrable castle wall. But we are close to doing it, I think.
Yeah. It's great news.
And like you said, just getting them to consider it, that speaks volumes.
It was amazing. I mean, you wouldn't think that we'd even get the time of day, but we spoke to them for many months. Amanda talked to them and they were reading our stuff. And, again, it's part of the groupthink dynamic. Like for, half the battle was getting CBS to overcome the groupthink and to bravely step out and do something that other news outlets, lacked the fortitude to do. And we argued to them, look, you guys already did this once before. You guys covered snus when it first came out, and you guys were the ones that broke the tobacco company insider documents. I mean, this is your legacy of standing up on nicotine policy and breaking new ground when other news outlets were too scared to do it. So cowboy up.
Well, the conspiracy part of it is that's the generations that are still watching that show are that generation that is that ones that show up to vote.
But it's like what I don't know, Tim or John said just a moment ago. Like when suburban grandparents in Normal, Illinois see that on 60 Minutes, it's like that's more than that has more impact than anything we've done over the last 10 years.
More than a Facebook article.
More than a Twitter thread.
A Facebook blog article, I mean.
But listen, take heart. I mean, again, I want to sort of come to the end, but by reiterating that the vape movement and this crew in particular are punching so far above your weight you don't know it. I mean, I realize in the thick of the battle, it's hard to look back, but there are other industries much bigger than yours that envy the way I was in Chicago not a month ago meeting with my giant tuna companies. These are billion-dollar global companies. And I was showing them the case study of the stuff we were doing, bashing FDA. They hate FDA too. Yeah. And they were just, green with envy, bouncing in their chairs. We want to do that too. So take heart, because you guys are giving Donkey Kong a run for his money.
Well, hopefully like 40 or 50 years down the road, they'll be actually studying this in Harvard as one of their law dockets or whatever they call them over there. They'll be studying this case. They'll be like, hey, this is what happened in vaping 50 years ago.
Yeah, listen, you might be right. I was looking at a quote we're going to put up on Twitter later this week from John D. Rockefeller, who had almost single-handedly funded the prohibition movement against alcohol in the 1920s. Same exact model, funding advocacy groups, buying off journalists, raw power on Capitol Hill. Guess what? They won.
He was outlawed too, right?
Right. And later in the 1930s, when all of the various harms that came from that, prohibition mania came to be understood, Rockefeller himself said, I really regret what I've done here. The harms are far worse. He said, I thought that the public opinion was going to shift 100% against alcohol once it was part of the law. I thought people would understand we've reached the utopia, but instead what happened was crime and black markets and far more harm than I could ever have envisioned. So he really expressed open chagrin. I doubt Michael Bloomberg has the character for that. But the point I'm making is at that time, that too seemed insurmountable, and that too seemed like there was too much money and too much force on the other side, and it was an illusion.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well,
that's exactly right.
Thank God we don't shut up. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm officially out of French fries. So on that hopeful note, I may need to call a wrap.
That's okay. We also do have the good fortune to be on the right side of history. I do believe that with all of my heart.
Yeah. Jim, what was Jim's first car?
I lived in the state of Wyoming when I was 16. I did my senior year of high school in the high country, and I owned a used 1972 Cadillac Coupe de Ville V8 pre-catalytic converter.
Jeez.
One of the last true American cars ever made.
Oh,
23 feet long. Yeah.
Riding around like Cruella de Vil.
I won't talk about my 68 Chevy Impala then.
Oh, wait a second. That gets off the line faster than mine.
what was your favorite toy growing up, Jim?
I was kind of a nerd. I was on the chess team at a young age and played Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm a proud flag flying geek.
Right on.
Nothing wrong with that.
You're my kind of guy.
If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your family and friends assume you have done?
Oh gosh. Good question. Never been convicted. What do they say in Stripes? Bill Murray said never convicted, right, Phil?
Never once.
I don't know. These days I'm a single dad, and I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and my life revolves around, I don't know, barbecue and golf. So I don't know, hitting someone with a wayward tee shot, I guess.
I'll be taking these Huggies and whatever cash you got.
Don't mutter the word for. Right.
Well, Jim, we know you have to go. We truly appreciate you giving us as much time as you have. I know you're out of French fries. That is dangerous territory to be in with a 6-year-old. So
well, look, to be continued. I'd love to join in anytime you guys like. And it's been
come back.
It's been a real pleasure. I'm again a big admirer of all of yours, and you're nice to have me. I've really enjoyed the chit chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. We will definitely have you back.
All right, sounds good. Good night, everybody.
Right,
cheers,
thanks,
Jim.
Take care.
Thank you.
What do we talk about now?
I know.
Good people. I am sorry, but I have to leave the show as well. As it turns out, Deirdre is flying out to Baltimore imminently, and we have had 0 time to spend together in the last few days. So I'm out of here. Love you all. Thank you.
Love you,
Great
Phillip.
show.
See you next week.
Cheers.
Peace.
And then there were 3.
And then there was 3.
So,
do we have any advocacy? Hey, Tim, let's make this fun, Tim.
What we got?
Well, I mean, I didn't actually pull anything. You're talking about true vaping advocacy.
Tim, can you hear me, Tim?
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, well, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me, Mally?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I was going to say we could have a little bit of fun. What are you vaping today, Tim? What is Tim's flavor of the choice? What's Tim's?
Oh God, I'm defending these hills today, so I'm going with the classic Jam Monster apple. All right, I've run out of all of my menthol and icy flavors, so I'm having a bit of a withdrawal symptom right now. So I think I'm gonna have to load up a cart with some mango and some and then you know what? And here's one of those bottles where you're like, okay, I get a box every month, right? And we know that most, like nowadays, none of it's identified. Like we get an email, but I don't remember what was in the email. So like you open the box, right? And I'm 55 years old. And does that really mean much? No, it just means I'm 55 years old. But I do have ever slowly failing eyesight, right? Where everything gets blurry. Why do all 30 ml bottles have to be like font 1.2 or something? I can't read a damn one of them.
It's got to take up 20. What is it, Allie? How much does the label have to take of
20%? That's the warning.
Well, right, but if this was a 100 ml bottle, it would be a completely different outcome. I'm just saying. I'm at that point now where I just open the box and I just grab a bottle and I open it and then I put a drop on my finger and I taste it. So to be honest, to answer your question, John, I have no idea what the hell this is. All I can tell you,
menus. Do you not miss I miss the menus.
I do miss the menu. Maybe I should pay more attention to my email though. And then so I'm using the Lux. Not the X. I don't have the new one. All you fancy kids who went out and got the new one. I don't have that one. I got the first Lux, which is still a great vape. And that's what the unidentifiable juice is in.
Yeah,
And then
Creatures.
yeah, and then I've got the Valkyrie on top of the 200 watt, the Bogan one, whatever
I
that.
put that one away. I just stopped vaping on that one.
You know what? I decided that I needed to go and pull a Shelf Queen down and actually use it once in a while. So I decided to try something I hadn't touched in a while.
I got a question for you because this is something I noticed I've done. Both of us are both mint and menthol vapors. Do you notice you vape more when you've run out of that menthol and that mint when you go to something else? Do you feel like you're vaping more? I notice I vape more when I'm not vaping the menthol or the mint.
There might be a shred of truth in that. I don't know. I guess I'm just so unfiltered. I don't really pay attention to what I'm doing. It's just like whenever the tank gets empty, you just fill the sucker back up and then get right back to work. So I don't know. I don't. I'm
to see how much left in there.
That's the other problem too. You know what? Hey, look, I understand that we have to put particular labels on bottles and we have to show particular information, especially like the thing that, says that, we're gonna die, nicotine's don't put the label all the way around. Like, can you leave like this company, leave a crack so that at least we can see how much is left, and stop using dark bottles.
No, they have to. Allie will explain why the dark bottles are necessary.
They didn't use a dark bottle. It's a clear bottle.
We don't have to use a dark bottle as long as it's childproof.
Yeah.
But it does keep the
it does preserve the juice a little more from the light. Yeah.
Well, if you're smart and been vaping for a while, you would know that you want to keep your e-liquids in a cool, dry, dark location, folks. So with that said, hey, I think clear bottles all the way. No, I'm just saying, help out the aging folks on this planet. I didn't get that AARP card for nothing. You know what I mean?
Hey, I get that call all the time. I can't open these bottles. And we're like, sorry that you're 88 and can't open the bottle. But also, why don't you ask your 16-year-old grandchild, because they can probably open the childproof bottle more easily than you can. It's unfortunate, but it does happen.
Send your complaint letters to the FDA. Allie, what's your flavor of the day? What do you make?
It's the same thing I'm always using, which is my Aqua Pure. I love it.
Aqua Pure.
What flavor profile is
it's
that?
Watermelon apple peach.
Ooh,
there you go, Steve. He asked. He said no watermelon peach. You got darn right. There's watermelon peach.
No watermelon peach. Actually, I went back. I was trying to wean myself away from the fruit stuff. I feel like I'm missing out on the custards and the dessert stuff. So I've been trying to late about this time, 4 at night, to kind of switch to that stuff. So I actually trying this vanilla custard is what I've been vaping. I don't know. I'm not even going to attempt.
There you go. Same kind of problem I got.
Listen, take a picture of the label and then blow it up on your phone so you can read it. That's my trick.
I don't know. It's mirrored. I can't. Now there you go. I can't.
There you go. Something custard.
Okay.
I can't see it.
So are you going back to desserts, John?
No, just at night. Just at night. During the day, I tried it, and I still missed my mango stuff. I still missed the watermelon stuff. I just feel more, especially it's been 100 plus here. I just kind of feel funny, vaping a custard or an apple pie.
Yeah,
I want something a little bit refreshing. But I'm trying because I feel like I'm missing out. Of those flavors, because most of us, I think most of us started with the heavier flavors, right? That you start with a heavier flavor. Yeah, I almost needed that custard or that pecan pie was a big one too.
Well, I also think a bit of it was fascination. It was like you're getting into this thing, and then you start seeing all these flavor options. And you're like, oh my god. What would a lemon meringue pie taste like in a vape? Yep. And so you recall all the desserts and things that you would enjoy anytime otherwise, and that's kind of what draws you to them. Not to say that I don't like fruit, but I just probably growing up was not as much of a candy eating kid as I was a dessert eating kid, and so therefore I certainly think that was part of the allure. Unfortunately, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately. I felt like the dessert and the cereal stuff all got a bit one-dimensional for me, and so I pick up one bottle from the next, regardless of the flavor profile, and I'm like, I just this tastes like the last thing. So
Yeah.
that made me think that I'm missing something. Like, what am I not rolling my coil right? Am I not wicking it right? Am I not setting it to the right wattage? I mean, I at that time I had no clue that power and the wattage you're vaping at could make a flavor taste better or worse. I had no clue. So I just was like, I'll go to fruits. And then I just kind of stayed there.
Yeah, for me, custards always seemed kind of overpowering. So I never really could taste anything past the custard because it was so upfront and in your face. So I think that was one of the reasons why I kind of shied away from that. Although I did used to love, what was that? I love donuts. It was like a blueberry donut. That one was really good for a while. But I think it's because it incorporated some of that fruit that I like.
Yeah, well, and I think that would be the selling point for me. If it's going to be a dessert vape, it's going to have to be something that kind of has an attractive fruit in it, to kind of give it that layering. Because I had the same problem with custards, custards specifically, and you're vaping. You're like, to me, I equate it to, it wasn't disgusting, and I could probably tolerate it, but I equate it to like drinking a cream soda.
Yeah. It's like an eggnog to me.
Yeah, and it's like there could be 8,000 varieties of cream soda on the shelf, and I drink one, and they all taste the same.
It's the same,
and you can never get rid of it. You can never get rid of it.
Yeah, and it is hard to get out of the coil after you start using it. Like that has to be your designated custard coil or cotton.
Oh yeah. And I had the same problem with not watermelon. Watermelon was always fine.
Honeydew for me.
Yeah, honeydew sticks around forever and a day.
Yeah.
Like you just can't get rid of that. Like you try to pour something else in the tank and it's like, I still taste honeydew.
Honeydew.
I still taste honeydew.
Yep.
I struggle with that one mightily all the time.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. Wait, what are we looking at?
What are we looking at?
Oh, this is that thing.
Taking a look at this device, I was kind of intrigued until I saw the fucking price.
How much is it? I don't even know. I saw some reviews on it.
I saw 160.
What? Does it fill itself up and then vape it?
Yes. Yeah, it does. It does.
It fill itself up, and it's you can see this is the battery bank. I can't blow it up. This part, I guess you can see my mouth. This is the battery bank, and then yours is your actual mod, and the coils or the cartridge has 2 holes in it. So when you punch it back into this thing, it meets up with the 2 holes from the tank, which is part of the battery unit. So you push a button and it just feeds it automatically for you, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing innovation. It's great just to see some innovation. I saw 160, and now that was on Vaporesso's site. So I haven't seen anybody pushing this yet. So
I think it's still kind of newish, right?
Okay,
I mean,
so they have it on sale for 106.
Okay, 106. So okay, might have been off the. Is that off the Vaporesso? I'm on
Vaporesso's website right now.
Okay, maybe I saw it wrong, but I saw 160 and I about shit my pants. So I was like,
it's originally 129.90, and they have it on sale for 106, according to the Vaporesso page.
Yeah, I think while that does sound a bit, it does sound outrageous, especially for someone who might want. Because I saw that and I thought, and I know Allison's probably had to encounter this 1,000 billion times. I'll make up a number, but the someone who's older, who's struggling with the device, having maybe it's arthritis that's impacting them, stuff like that. Like they can't, like they're not going to go buy a squonk. Okay, they're not going to go buy some big fat mod that has a 8 ml bottle in it. This would be perfect for somebody like that because they could just put it right back, and you can actually vape on the mod while it's inside the battery pack. So you're not limited to just taking it out. It actually gives you convenience at home. And then I think if you're somebody who needs to take it with you for a while and have something in, small, concealable, throw it in your purse, your pocket, whatever, you get multiple options there. And then it eliminates that whole thing. Like it's easier to fill up that 35 mil tank right there than it is to fill up that tiny little 2 mil tank that's on there.
So this is the tank right here. Oh, go back. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, there's the tank. It's a 7.5 mil tank. And then when you slide it in, it just kind of meets up with the 2 holes that are on the cartridge that's on the device. And then there's a button down here that you push, and that'll fill it automatically up to the max slide. It won't overfill. It will not. It'll just stop. It'll start flashing. It won't let it fill all the way, overfill itself. Very neat. I mean, it's a great little idea. You fill up that 7 mils, and then I think the device. Oh yeah, 250 mAh battery in the device. So yeah, you're going to have to carry that thing around with you, because that thing's not going to last at 250.
No, but you know what? You kind of have to go watch the reviews on it. Like,
I
yes,
did.
yeah, look
Interesting.
at the picture of it in that guy's hand.
Yeah.
You can see it's a pretty large device. I mean, when you have the totality of it, it's fairly sizable. So it could be cumbersome for some to have that kind of, in their hand all the time. So the fact that you can just take the stick MTL out and have something
This is
like
very grown up advertising right here. I
Yeah.
like it. I do.
The
I do.
line there behind that. Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah, they're listening, Allie. They're listening.
Well, listen, if you thought this was for kids, think again. They're at a bar.
Yeah, a very, very neat device. I don't know. I might try to buy it because I think that's something I could use instead of purchasing a disposable every time I go hiking. I could just fill this thing up and then just kind of use it as I go along and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
See, it's just so expensive if you lose it. Can you buy that little piece that goes inside of it as a
I
replacement?
was thinking the same thing. If these two things were available separately to
I lose
replace.
everything.
Yeah, like what do you do if something on that breaks? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Then you're
Yeah.
kind
Or
of SOL.
if you take that piece on the go and then you lose it, you got to buy the whole thing over again. Can you just buy that little?
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
don't-
That's social.
we'll see how they roll it out. I'm sure they'll probably sell it as like an accessory squonk kind of, they'll probably call it the battery case or something like that. They'll probably sell them I would hope that they would, especially when
Yeah.
they have something that separates from itself.
Yeah, I think they should stop using this in vape devices completely. That phrase, no leaking, because I don't care. It's gonna leak. We've heard it for like 10 years. No leak.
That stuff. But there have been some RTA tanks and RDAs that have been developed that, really, I mean, unless you
Yeah.
The problem in
arbitrarily go
lies
out of
is
your
that
way.
you leave it out in the car in the heat, and then a
Right.
customer will say,
it's-
"This
yeah.
leaked," and I'm like, "Well, you've thinned that liquid out to,
Yeah, it's
consistency."
106
Yeah.
out. It's 145 in your car. What do you think's gonna happen?
Right. Yeah.
It's
It
funny.
spit in
'Cause,
my
like,
mouth when I went to vape on it.
yeah, it's like last Sunday. We had the last Saturday. I had to go to church, and it was hot. And all I kept thinking was, and I kept checking my pockets. And this is how bad I was because I knew I carry extra batteries with me. But I kept thinking, oh shit, I left them in the car. I am so frightened of leaving stuff in the car because I'm like, I've seen that image, of the car on fire. So I'm constantly checking my pocket. Okay, there's the batteries. There's the 2 batteries. There's my mod. Juice, I don't really care so much. I know you're not supposed to, but I'm not like worried about juice exploding in my car.
I mean, you also vape juice that's like 72 years old. So
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, basically, that's what's the town in Cali? The Berea Tar Pits. That's John has it actually in his basement.
Yeah, I'm just glad. The thing with me with this device, I was just glad to see some innovation, and I was just like, okay, here we go. Maybe this is going to be the device that maybe spark some little changes that that I want to say a lot of them. Let's be honest, a lot of little changes that we want as consumers, not what they think we need, would be nice for a while, just for a little bit, and they did that for a while though, right? I mean, there was a time where they were listening to us and they're like, okay, we'll do this. And let's, for instance, the colors. I know a lot of us were like, hey, silver and black, so chrome and black, chrome and black, chrome and black. And then we got some colors, and then they started, bringing different things, different types of decks, and people would complain about the decks were too small. And so we've gone from 22 millimeters to 24 millimeters to 26 millimeters, 28. What do we got? 45. I think the biggest one I've seen was what?
Yeah, it was somewhere in that neck of the woods. But what I also like about that a lot is that it really is classy looking. You know what I mean? It's sleek. It's very business like. It's like it's something that you would be okay having, and it doesn't look childish.
Right.
We get made fun of all the time. Oh, your lightsaber or whatever. We supposedly holding in our hand. Hey, there's nothing wrong with having a little, fun futuristic thing in your hand. I mean, everybody likes different things, but I think if you're trying to target in an adult market, especially maybe a little bit more avant-garde market, where they're like, well, I don't want that weird looking thing. I want something that looks
Nice colors. All the colors are nice.
It's all
Yeah.
Bugatti and shit.
Unfortunately, though, they seem like they're all sold out.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think they usually do that before it gets put out there. I think they always.
yeah,
okay.
that's what what do you call them?
Oh,
not my vapor store, but the other one. What's the other one?
All of them do that. They'll
So
put
many.
pre-order out of stock, and then you have to pre-order.
Yeah, they say out. Well, no, they don't even offer the pre-order on most of those sites. They just say out of stock.
Yeah,
and you're
they got.
like, so you got to wait. You got to wait till they get the stock in, and then they open it back up.
I like the colors. I love that green. That green is
I like
banging.
green too.
And the Colorado, that thing was what? That was 54? No, I can't remember. That was a big RDA. Because I had the Buddha. I still have the Buddha RDA, and I can't remember how big that one was. But I put some fat coils in that one. Lab works. What are you doing? I just noticed it.
No, I saw people saying hi to him. Hi, Paul.
Minivan green.
Hey, Paul, can you get your hands on this device for us and send it to all of us? Or I'll email Vaporesso.
Funny how the guy in the most restrictive location on the planet can get whatever we want.
Yeah, no, I'm just glad. Hopefully, like I said, innovation would be nice to start seeing some little bits of changes here and there. But I think that's going to all depend on what happens here. But I don't see Vaporesso and a lot of these other manufacturers. Are they limited to certain innovation, even within the UK and some other places? I mean, other than the tank size, I don't think they're limited to colors or design features that mods can have, right?
I haven't heard anything where they have design limitations. I mean, let's be real. I mean, those are the people that are still going to have a lot more access to things.
Yeah.
Than we might, I mean, the market shifts for us all the time. I mean, right now, Boros is the biggest thing since sliced bread. Everybody's doing a Boro this and a Boro that, which I think in its own right, it's great innovation because it allows you to take part and use multiple affinity type items, with this one device. I think, plug and play like that is really smart. But yeah, that's probably been the most.
The old Kanger deck. You can bring back the old Kanger Tech deck in that.
Well, but I mean, that's a good question that we have to ask ourselves. I mean, and I think you've asked.
Well, nothing has been approved as far as devices aside from the 23 things that have been approved, which are all outdated and no one uses anymore. But I think we haven't really even tackled that yet because we haven't seen anybody get anywhere with a device that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hard for you to answer this question because every customer that comes in the store is a little different. I know you're not involved with a lot of the customers, but do they come in and do they, like the older customers, do they still come in and say, hey, what's new?
No, most of the older customers, we still sell Nautilus tanks. We still sell BVC coils. Like our customers like their old faithful E-Leaf 30 watt with their K1 tank. I mean, they're very, set in their ways of what they want. I would hate for those things to become obsolete and for us not to be able to get them anymore because we'd have a lot of people that have really learned how to use and care for those devices, and that's their go-to, and they really don't want anything special. And they also don't want to spend money. Everybody's, trying to conserve on money now. Yeah.
I don't even know what those are. I have to look into that space turtle. Nitrous RDAs and RDTAs. So nitrous is a propellant, or is that just so the nomenclature around the device? I'm like, wow. Yeah. I remember when that thing came out when you could put soda and drinks in the tank. And I'm like, how does that even going to work? And I think it got a horrible review, but like now he's mentioning nitrous, and I get the concept of nitrous. He's not talking like nitrous.
It's the name of the right. Yeah, it's the name of the.
It's just the name. Okay.
Yeah, the name of the RDA. Yeah. Yeah. No, I like one of the things I do like about this new thing is the fact that there is no touch. Once you fill up that tank, your liquid's not in the air. It's not exposed to any dirtiness. It's not exposed to your fingers, your hands, and everything else that's around. It's concealed in there. So at least that 7.5 mils is going to be clean every time you vape. And I like that. I mean, not that we've got like bugs flying in our fucking tanks when we're filling them up, but
It's happened before.
I've had it happen like twice.
I've vaped a fly before. It's happened.
I had damn mosquitoes. As soon as I opened this stupid thing, it was like they smelt the friggin' mango and just said, "Oh, what the hell's that?"
Yeah. I get those little fruit fly fuckers that hang around. They annoy the living shit out of me. I'm like, stop! Don't go in the dripper. Don't. You don't have to go in.
My mind went right to every single show that I seen on TV that tells us about how much insects are in our actual food. And I'm like, fuck it, keep vaping it.
Yeah, but the FDA probably has an allowance for it. Do you know what I mean? They probably say it's okay to consume X amount of bugs in your daily diet, and it won't cause you any harm.
Yeah. Shit flies in our food. I'm not going to get into that because we'll ruin this.
Yeah, I already seen enough pork chop videos on YouTube, John. I don't need to.
Yeah, I just hope to see a little bit more. And I know it's kind of selfish to want that because we're dealing with a lot of other things. But I mean, it was exciting to see the new stuff. 10 years, not even have to go that far back. I mean, 5-6 years ago, it was just exciting to see the new stuff that was coming out. And yeah, you're right. There are a few that are happy with, they're still using the same, device and they're happy with it. But there's a lot of us that just like, oh, can't wait. I can't wait to see what Vaporesso is putting out. I can't wait to see what Smock's putting out. And just, whether we needed it or not, we bought it, and it was just because we wanted to have it. And it was, did it sometimes say it worked better than the other one, or sometimes it didn't. So
sometimes it was the exact same thing, just in a different package, and it was just fine because it was pretty than the one prior.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's one thing
for that V2 logo.
Yep. Hey, I'm all about matching.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I was looking.
Do you find it?
Oh, I found it that night.
I'm looking at a website and it keeps interrupting my broadcast.
Yeah, Allie's got it.
I found it. Yeah.
I kind of remember that. I just trying to think what it looked like. That's what I missed. I missed like I'm a big I don't know. I'm a big IG fan. I love IG, and that used to be fun just to be able to scroll through there and see everybody's pictures of all this new stuff, and seeing it before it even got to YouTube and all this other places. And now it's just I'm like scrolling through there, and it's just the same stuff over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the reason why maybe you too, Tim. I mean, we start going back to our old stuff and grabbing it off the shelf, even though it's not new to us, but it's new for us that week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I said, I feel like that's the one thing that I remember sort of being there that I miss, kind of like in the flood of it all was kind of like those absolutely useless arguments we would have in vape groups about, which RDA was better. It was like the classic iPhone Android argument, which phone software is better. And I missed that hype, I mean, even though maybe I didn't buy into it, I liked seeing people get excited about stuff, and that's now void right now. Yeah. I mean, some things come out and people are like, ooh, what's that? But not in the droves that it was before, The Vupu 25 is dropping and it's like
version 2.0.
Yeah, look at the
and colors. I love it. I got tired of doing solid numbers and they were just version 1.5. Okay, so it wasn't good enough to be 2. So you're gonna go 1.5 just in case.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody was better than Smoke, like little brother, big cousin, like it was, and they all had different coils. Every single freaking tank was different coils.
I missed that, and I missed the people that would, when a product was just absolutely amazing and everybody was just raving about it, and it just worked well for thousands and thousands of people, and then you had that one guy that would come into the thread or to the group and would just stupidly write something bad about, and then just get attacked. As an admin, I was like, "Come on, guys, give the guy a break." Well, come on. he's one out of 10,000 people that had an issue. Well, he had an issue. Spit on him. Help him out. Maybe he's doing something wrong. Ask him to take pictures of the deck, take pictures of his build, or how he's wicking his cotton. Don't just tear him a new asshole because he attacked the I'm going to name it. Which RDA am I talking about, Tim?
What do you mean?
Rabbit.
Oh, the dead. Well, it was always the drop versus the dead rabbit.
Yeah,
that was the eternal argument.
But God forbid if you went into the Zample Box community family page and said anything bad about the dead rabbit.
Well, of course, yeah, you can't slander anything because then you hurt somebody's feelings, and then they get mad because they're all up in their feels, and they're like, "But it's the best thing." Yeah, but as much as we look back on it and laugh, you have to admit that it was a really sort of robust element of vaping at the time, and that it was great to see an industry moving forward and having choices and options and the ability to have those silly, stupid arguments. It's like, because you look at all the stuff behind me and I'm like,
it helped us stay from smoking because we were so busy fucking typing in there. You son of a bitch! What are you? Exactly. Oh, what kind of whatever.
Exactly.
Well, hey guys, we are at the exactly almost it's 58.
Look at that.
59 hour mark. And we're done. I don't know. We're going to try to. I won't mention who we're trying to get on, but we'll be having some big guests coming pretty soon here. I don't think we have anybody scheduled for next week, but that always changes. So we'll let you know on the Twitter account there if we have anybody scheduled. But I want to thank Jim for joining us and thank Allie for having Jim come on and be a part of the show and help us get better to understand what he's doing and get to know him a little bit. Thank you, Tim, Allie, and Phillip, of course. I had to take off a little bit early, and thank you guys out there for watching and commenting on the show. We will see everybody next week. Same time, same channel, same place. Peace out. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.